Okay, so when you think about the Bible, you're probably thinking about this massive collection of books, right? 66 of them, all written over centuries. But what if they aren't just a random library? What if, from the first page to the last, they're all telling one single unified story? That's what we're going to do here. We're going to trace that epic narrative from beginning to end.
So where does this story kick off? It starts in a garden. Imagine a world that's just humming with goodness and life. It's not just a physical place, it's a cosmic space where heaven and earth are one, where everything is in perfect harmony, and God's own life and presence are there, letting everything just flourish.
But as you can probably guess, it doesn't stay that way. Right into the middle of all this goodness, a huge problem is introduced. A conflict that tragically shatters this perfect beginning and sends everything spiraling in the opposite direction.
So, part 1, a good world, broken. What on earth went wrong? Well, the story frames the problem as a rebellion, one that actually starts in the spiritual realm and then spills over into our world, fracturing, well, pretty much everything.
You see, the source of all this trouble is presented as a spiritual being, a creature in rebellion against its own creator. And it enters this perfect garden not with force, but with something way more subtle, deception. It starts twisting the story of God's goodness, and then it tempts the humans to join in on its mission to ruin it all.
So the humans are at a crossroads. Do they trust God's wisdom, or do they grab at wisdom for themselves, on their own terms? They choose rebellion. And boom, just like that, the goodness of the garden is lost. The world starts to spin totally out of control, leading to fractured relationships, violence, and ultimately death.
But here's the thing, that is not the final word. In response to this whole tragedy, God makes a promise of a rescue that becomes this central thread of hope that pulls you through the rest of the entire biblical story.
And right away, we get this really mysterious promise. It's about a future human, a son of Eve, who's going to come and deliver a death blow to evil itself. He's going to crush the serpent's head. But here's the twist. In the process, he's going to be wounded. The serpent's going to get his heel. He becomes this sort of wounded victor.
And you can literally watch this one promise get passed down like a torch through the generations. First, it's carried by Abraham's family, who are supposed to bring blessing to the whole world. Then it narrows down to the royal line of King David. The one who will finally fulfill this promise is supposed to be a messianic king from his family.
But, and this is a big but, there's a huge problem. Despite having this incredible promise, humanity, and yeah, even God's chosen people, they just keep failing, over and over again. They actually become part of the very problem they were meant to solve.
You see this so clearly with the kings from David's line. I mean, these are the guys who are supposed to lead the rescue mission, and instead they do the exact opposite. They fall for all the same old temptations, they start worshiping other gods, they chase after power and money, and they become so corrupt they end up running the nation of Israel right into the ground.
The prophet Daniel just nails this contrast. He has these visions where he sees that when human kingdoms forget their ruling on behalf of God, when they start exalting themselves as if they're divine, they stop being truly human. They become like these violent beasts. And this is the polar opposite of God's ideal kingdom, which is led by a truly human figure, the Son of Man, who rules with justice and healing.
So this is the bottom line, right? Humanity has reached a point of no return. Even the people chosen to carry this blessing to the world have become captive to the very evil they were supposed to fight. They're trapped. They cannot rescue themselves.
And it's right here, at this absolute low point, that the whole story pivots. The promised hero, that snake crusher, he finally arrives. But his identity, and especially his path to victory, are not at all what anyone was expecting.
This brings up a really crucial question for the entire story. If human power, when it's misused, turns people and kingdoms into violent beasts, well, how do you defeat that kind of evil? How do you defeat a monster?
And here we get the story's brilliant, ironic, and totally unexpected answer. You don't defeat evil by playing its game. You don't conquer a monster by becoming one yourself. The hero, Jesus, he's going to confront evil with a completely different strategy.
So, instead of destroying his enemies, Jesus actually lets his enemies destroy him. He confronts all of humanity's accumulated evil by taking its full, lethal power into himself. In his death on the cross, he willingly absorbs that fatal snakebite that was promised all the way back in the garden.
The book of Revelation gives us this incredible image for it. Jesus is the slain lamb. Think about that. He conquers not with a sword, but through self-sacrificial love. By dying for his enemies and then rising from the dead, he overcomes evil and death itself, and he opens up a path for a whole new way to be human.
So, great, the hero wins, but what does that victory actually do? Well, it doesn't just solve a problem in the past, it opens up a radical new future for all of humanity and for all of creation.
The way this plays out kind of happens in stages. First, his power over evil and death is available to us right now, which makes a new way of life possible for his followers. But then, looking to the future, there's a promise that one day evil will be fully and finally dealt with for good. And that leads to the complete restoration of all creation. You know, in the final pages of the Bible, in the description of this restored world, what's called the New Jerusalem, we get this really surprising detail. The number of temples in this new city is 0, none. So, why is that?
Well, it's because the whole point of a temple was to be this one special place where God's presence was focused. But in the new creation, that's not necessary anymore. The presence of God and the Lamb will permeate every single part of the new world. Heaven and earth will finally be one again, just like they were in the garden at the very beginning of the story.
So, from the garden lost all the way to the garden restored, that's the Bible's epic story of a grand rescue mission. You know, it presents itself not as just some ancient myth, but as the true story of our world. And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question. What if it is?